Dude, we're going to Mars.
Welcome to the podcast. Today, we have Vero Dimas from the Brownsville Wellness Coalition. How are you, Vero?
I'm great. How are you? Thank you for having me.
The reason for this podcast, which is going to be a 3-part series, is that we just did something really cool, crazy, and it involves Brownsville. So we wanted to kind of share with the community what we lived, what we got to see. And there was 3 different organizations, Brownsville Wellness Coalition, Big Heroes, and Roca, that all participated, and they will all be talking today. So we're going to start with Vero, and Vero is, we call it the OG, in the group. And so, Vero, I want to learn a little bit more about the Brownsville Wellness Coalition. I heard a lot about it through this whole thing, but what I don't understand is, are you a founder? Did you come later? How did you get involved in all of this?
Yeah, sure. So, yes, I'm excited to share the story. I always like to share stories and talk about, especially the organization is very dear to my heart. So I'm not the founder. The organization's been around since 2008. It started as a health initiative with the city of Brownsville and the UT School of Public Health. Dr. Gowan, Dr. McCormick, and Dr. Belinda Reiniger were the founding creators of this farmers market, which is the famous Brownsville farmers market.
So the Brownsville Farmers Market predates the Brownsville Wellness Coalition.
Yes, so the Brownsville Farmers Market does predate the Brownsville Wellness Coalition. We applied for a 501c3 back in 2008 and got denied by the IRS because they thought it was a for-profit business, of course, right? So the attorneys and the board recreated and they formed the Brownsville Wellness Coalition that runs the Brownsville Farmers Market to be able to create this 501c3. And so it's one of the programs of the Brownsville Wellness Coalition. So it took us a while to kind of make people understand that the farmers market is run by Brownsville Wellness Coalition, a nonprofit. And that's very common in very many cities, right? No one knows who runs the farmers market. So it's a great learning point too. But we could talk about that later. It started as a health initiative, learning the different chronic diseases and the numbers that were rising here in Brownsville back in 2008. As you can remember, you and I that have lived here all of our life, we've known that back in 2008 is when we saw the increase of all these fast food restaurants and the increase of McDonald's and diabetes.
There's something about, and I've always thought this, our diet, our Mexican-American diet with fast food, that combination is horrible.
Yeah, it's just, it's not like you and I that we would get home after school and eat the frijoles or the tortillas that were made by our moms. So it's like a fast food craziness. So the numbers started changing. We also learned the people that were underinsured, so they don't have insurance to have healthy access by doctors. So the farmers market was created. And I started with the organization back in 2014 when Melissa Delgado, she was part of the advisory board for the farmers market, and she invited, we were both we were running our community garden at St. Mary's Catholic School with our children. So then she invited me to participate in this, and I was blown away with all the information I was learning. I was learning those numbers. I was learning the resources that people were not tapping into. And I was like, who's spreading the word on this, right? So as a true Brownsvillian, I started spreading the word. And in 2014, I started running the farmers market. When I came to the market, it was a small market. I want to say about 15 vendors, 10 to 15 vendors at the most. We were incentivizing farmers to bring their produce over to Linear Park, providing them with a table and a tent for free so that they can set up. So then from there, it started growing. We started our first community garden, which is our 𝙒𝙗𝙖𝙩. And from there, we started learning that there was a lot of interest in people wanting to learn how to grow their own food. As a Brownsvillian, you'll also know that there's a lot of families here that migrate to do migrant work, right? In California and Florida and other states. So there's a lot of talent when it came to farming talent when it came to growing. But they would go work, get paid good money, and then come back, and they're like, we're not going to farm Vero for I don't care if you give me 20 minutes, I'm done farming, right? So, but their children or their wives or their aunts or grandma or somebody in their family wanted to learn how to wanted to continue growing. So we started spreading the word. We've now increased from one community garden. We have 5 community gardens, 2 urban farms, and we provide a space where people can learn how to grow their own food.
What's the difference between the community garden and the urban farm?
So the urban farms are 1/4 acre properties, and this is where people learn how to grow in a bigger scale.
Is La Posada that?
Yeah, La Posada is an urban farm because all the other community gardens, you have a 4x8 garden bed, and so people are stationed in their 4x8 garden beds. Well, we started learning that people wanted to add more space, so they started otro pedacito y otro pedacito. So then we city provided some property. And we have these 1/4 acre properties. One is on La Posada and the other one's La Mancha. And so people are growing in a bigger scale. David Vasquez, which is our urban farmer, and he's our farmer.
Farmer Dave?
Farmer Dave.
Yes.
Better known as Farmer Dave. He's the wizard behind all of this. It has not been.
He's amazing.
He's amazing. It hasn't been easy because, as you can imagine, the soil was kind of crazy and a lot of things were happening on that soil. But now the gardens are thriving. Like there's something about farming that you plant that seed, and usually people were in a generation that you get immediate satisfaction.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, with farming, that doesn't happen, right? You plant the seed and
wait.
You have to be patient and wait, right?
Wait for a while.
You wait for a while, so you don't get that fruit overnight. So just, being patient. And that's exactly how I feel that Brownsville Wellness Coalition has started. Back in 2008, we planted that seed. Fast forward to now, now are getting this beautiful harvest and working with amazing people and community partnerships.
Yeah, well, La Posada looks lush. I mean, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
I went, it's also surrounded by the cypress trees and it's crazy, right? But the whole farm looks amazing. And when the sun comes through, it's crazy.
Yeah, and if I would show you pictures, and actually we have to pull those up, and we'd show you pictures of what it looked like before, you would
dirt.
Really?
Yeah.
Really, this is what you're
Right.
aspiring to do that? And I have this vision on things and projects that usually goes that way. Like I envision it, like what the end a couple of years from now would look like. So for me, that's really important that I see it in that blank, raw, organic stage and develops into this beautiful project. And that's exactly how I feel about Brownsville Wellness Coalition, right? Back in 2008, somebody planted that seed and ignited that education and those resources in our community. And it's amazing now. And now sometimes those farmers markets get stigmatized. It's something for the elite. It's something for people to
Well, they're obviously reproducing, right? There's several in town now.
Yeah, now there's markets everywhere, right? First, in the beginning, I was like, no, you can't have a farmers market on Saturday because Saturdays are my morning, right? And then someone schooled me and said, no, Vero, the more farmers markets we have in town, the better it is because that means that people have access to healthier food and healthier options.
Yeah.
So and that's exactly what the market is doing now. And so from there, we've made the connection with the community gardens and the urban farms. And then people started growing eggplants and Swiss chard and, all these herbs that were not very popular. We didn't use them in the guacamole or in los huevos a la mexicana, no, right? It's the Mexican really chile, tomate, y cebolla. Right. But then we were growing Swiss chard and we were growing eggplant. And they're like, Vero, what am I going to do with eggplant? What am I going to do with Swiss chard? So we adopted a program called 𝙒𝙗𝙖𝙩, which is a 6-week cooking program where we teach people how to make recipes, not taking away from your traditional rice and beans kind of thing, but adding those components of vegetables into
adding the health component.
The health component to those recipes. So it's worked out really well. It's a program that we adopted from Sustainable Food Center in Austin. And it's a 6-week program and people really enjoy it. Fast forward to COVID time, March 2020, that totally changed our life. We started with the food distributions. So that's where we started in the
So when the food distribution, you actually used vegetables from the gardens and distributed them?
Yes. So David and I sat in March 2020, and we sat in my office at UT School of Public Health. That someone was standing behind me with a key, and they said, you need to leave. We're closing the school down. Yeah. You need to leave. You need to close your farmers market down. Classes are canceled and everything. Someone was literally you need to get
life's over.
So David was, lights over. And David was like, Miss Vero, what are we going to do with all this food that we have in the farms, or in these community gardens, what are we going to do? Because that produce was going into the La Cocina Alegre,
right,
and it was going into the farm.
Yeah, it was already like all
allocated, right, for the future. So we had to quickly pivot our programming into creating what I was at HEB, like everybody else, buying the essentials that I needed.
Waiting in line with a mask.
Yeah, this is a big plug for HEB. So I was there standing in line and saw this bundle, right? This bundle bag, like you can get this bundle. If you buy so-and-so's this, you can get this, right? And so I said, that's what we need to do. We need to make it a bundle, right? We need to make a bag. And so we started doing that and started selling it at the cannery, at the corner cannery. As you know, nothing is at the cannery. Right. But we set up shop and we started selling $10 bags of these bundle bags. And so you essentially get carrots, beets, onions, whatever we were harvesting and putting them in these bundle bags. There's something called CSA. It's community shared agriculture. And so people do these in other places. But for a long time, it's something that we've been talking about. But the word CSA never connected to our community. No le entendían, right? Like, what is a CSA? What does that stand for, right? So when I said bundle bag, it's like you're telling them like you're getting a
combo.
Like your Whataburger combo,
you get a combo, Happy Meal.
It was a bundle. We had lines, Edgar, lines of people waiting to get these.
That's what I'm trying to wrap my head around. Okay, how much food do you guys produce?
So we produce a lot of food in these quarter-acre properties, right? But at that time, we worked with farmers that their life changed too, right? We had Tenaza Farms, which is Mikey Ortiz and Jed Murray. They were closed, and so they were not delivering to the Whole Foods. They were not delivering to anywhere out of the state. So they came to us and they're like, Vero, we have artichokes.
Take some food.
So take some of this. Put some of this in your bags. And with all of our farmers that came to the farmers market, they were part of those bundle bags. So we were able to supplement some of that. Aside from what we had produced, of course, we ran out of it. EWC ran out of food. So we started working with these other farmers that were supplementing some of these items. And we were getting food also from the produce terminal and from the food bank. So the RGV Food Bank provided some of those non-perishable items. And we gave out over 100,000 bags of non-perishable items and over 95,000 bags of produce bags.
That's crazy.
During COVID time.
That's crazy. And what's awesome is that, a lot of people gave food, and it was a great time to see Brownsville come together. I'm pretty sure all the communities across the country were coming together, but most of the food that was given was very processed and very like normal, right? And it's good to learn. At least I didn't know any of this. That there were some healthy options been given to people, and helping during that time, which was crazy for all of us. It was insane.
And the success of it has been through the partnerships, right? The city of Brownsville is our community partner. They've always been since the beginning. They're still to this day. The city of Brownsville and then United Way, we worked with United Way, the RGV Food Bank, Valley Baptist Legacy Foundation. So then that's when Brownsville Wellness Coalition came to
now you're equal partner with these guys.
Now you're tackling these food insecurities and these food access that
you fit into this thing.
So
ecosystem.
It was mind-blowing how quickly all of this moved. So essentially that's from 2008, fast forward to 2022, that's what we're doing now. We're making sure that there's food access in every neighborhood and trying to help with the help of the community partners.
Yes. And so that gets us to what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Right. So then it gets crazier.
Yeah.
Right. So after this, I want to learn a little bit about how you get involved with Big Green. Big Green is what we're going to be talking about today. And so how do you get involved, or how does the Brownsville Wellness Coalition, do they find you, you find them? How does that work?
Yeah, so it was so weird because we applied for some funding through the 𝙒𝙗 Foundation. And it was essentially we submitted a proposal. We received an award from the 𝙒𝙗 Foundation, and I'm speaking to Igor over at the 𝙒𝙗 Foundation. He says, "Hey, Vero, I need to connect you to Big Green. Have you heard of them?" And of course, I hadn't. And then he said, "Yeah, I need to connect you with the Big Green folks." And I said, "Okay, cool." So at the same time, I get an email. At the same very time, I get an email from someone named Courtney. I thought it was a spam on
Right.
email, like I've gotten before, like help the American Red Cross, or whatever, those things. But it was a very simple email, said, hey, I want to talk about your organization and how's that working? How's the
Yeah. How's it going?
How's it going? And I thought, okay, well, let me respond, right? I had some time. I responded and got the email. So then she said, can we set up a Zoom? And I said, sure. So we set up a Zoom, and then her dad, or she had something happen, a family affair that she had to cancel. And I said, okay, well, next time, right?
Right.
I don't know why I had this hunch, and I thought, let me reach out again and just kind of ask. So I did, and she responded, yes, let's do it. So she wanted to learn about Brownsville Wellness Coalition, and I basically told her everything that I just kind of told you, right? The elevator pitch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so she said, okay, well, I'm going to get back to you and talk to some folks and get back to you. Then I started getting an email. Oh, I work with Big Green, and I work with Big Green, and all these people are contacting me, and I'm like, who are all these people, right? So finally, I get to talk to. I talked to all of them on a Zoom call, and they're like, well, we want to come to Brownsville. We saw that we had just hosted our farm to table dinner, which is our largest fundraiser for the organization, in October. And we want to have a farm to table. If we can kind of replicate what you did for your event, at the urban farm, and we're going to bring some people. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I talked to my folks, and they're like, hey, I said, this is when we're just getting back.
So you still haven't thoroughly researched who these people are?
I'm just busy working, right?
Yeah.
I'm just busy working.
Yeah, whatever. Come over.
Yeah, come over. I mean, that's how I am. Yeah, come over. So they come over, and so she says, and then one of those calls, and okay, that we're going to have a group of 12 people coming over. 12 turned into 20, and then 20 turned into 25. And so we had a beautiful farm to table picnic at La Posada. At La Posada.
Yes.
I said at La Posada.
At La Posada.
In Southmost.
Yes.
So
that was a great place.
That was it. She said, well, 𝙤𝙤𝙤𝙤 is the founder of this organization. I said, what? 𝙤𝙤𝙤𝙤? And I was like, 𝙤𝙤𝙤𝙤, right? I thought it was
like a cousin.
Yeah.
Is he related?
Yeah, is he related? So then I started doing my research. So then we had to be prepared. But at the same time, I was like, this is what Vero does, right? I just give out my pitch and throw the stars up in the sky.
You have nothing to lose.
I have nothing to lose. They're coming over to La Posada and to David. This is like if you were talking to your 8th grade class that comes and visits the farm, and let's give a show. Not a show, but maybe let's
show them around. Talk to them about what we do.
Yeah, show them around and talk about what we do. So they did. They came over, and I think that's where we both mutually fell in love. I fell in love with Big Green. Big Green fell in love with BWC.
It's crazy how it fits.
Yes.
Right? It was just, it's a fit no matter what. They just didn't know about you, and you didn't know about them.
Right. And it's funny because apparently if you Google food insecurity organizations in Brownsville.
Number one.
Yeah, and the first one that comes out is Brownsville Wellness Coalition, which is good for me, right? Whoever did our website.
SEO, good SEO.
Yeah, whoever did that website, kudos. I think it was Dandy Pilon, so I'll put a shout out to her. She was formerly on our board. So anyway, so they came to the farm. We had a beautiful farm to table, gave a tour, talked about the challenges and the risks and the successes that Brownsville Wellness Coalition was going. So Big Green, pre-COVID, they were working on providing community gardens in schools, in school districts.
Right.
So they wanted, because of the pandemic and the closure of schools and everything, they were having a hard time kind of getting back in the school districts. So they also pivoted their programming and finding organizations that were mission aligned with the work that they were doing.
Right.
I assume, and I've never asked Courtney, maybe I should ask her one day, that because of Starbase, there was that connection, right? Let's find something here in Brownsville. So then they came to Brownsville. We learned about both organizations, and it was a perfect fit. It has been a perfect fit because we've been growing food for a long time, and they've been growing.
You weren't so young that you weren't ready,
right?
And they were also looking for somebody to partner with that could do the stuff on the ground that they had envisioned.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's where we met, and that's where we connected. So that was in November 21, and I say that, and it feels like it was just last night.
Yeah.
But it was, well, one thing I've learned from them is that all these things happen
Fast.
real quick.
Yeah.
Real quick. Couple weeks later,
I think it's a Musk thing.
yeah, I think it's a Mustang. Yeah. A couple of weeks later, she said, Diana Ziegers called me, and she's like, "Hey, Vero, if we had 200 garden beds to give to you all, would you be able to distribute them in the city of Brownsville? How many can you distribute in the city of Brownsville?" I said, "Diana, if I put a post out and say I have 200 beds, I'm going to get 1,000 calls or more easily on people wanting these gardens." And it's that's a fact. People,
I saw it and I said I want one.
Oh yeah, I know.
I think everybody.
Yeah,
so
everybody.
you see it, and then going through the process, right? And I think let's talk about the process. So you don't just get a plant bed.
Right.
You also get the dirt, the soil that is perfect, and you also get the plants that are already ready. And so you have a garden in essence. In like, I did a bunch of these with them in like 30 minutes. Yeah. You got a garden.
Yeah. And we prepare you for success, right? Give you the garden beds, give you all the tools, and you get Farmer Dave on a resource, on a video that
we're working on that. And that's going to be amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So all of that is preparing families for success, right? And growing their own food. And not only do you grow food, but it's also the mental wellness that comes with growing your own food, being outside, getting your hands in the soil, learning the plants, knowing everything that you're doing, and just it
releases a lot of stress. And I talked to Farmer Dave a lot about this because I got to spend a lot of time with him. And I have plants. I don't have like vegetables and that kind of stuff, but I do. And during the pandemic, I found myself doing a lot more gardening than usual, right? And it like kept my mind at ease. It's something that I now do that I would never have thought I would have done. And now, because of Farmer Dave, I think I'm going to have to do it like a lot more. But
now you're committed to it. Yeah. So they reached out to me and said, "We have 200 of these garden beds. Can we install them?" And so 𝙒𝙗𝙤𝙀, which is part of she's part
she
of it.
texted me yesterday.
Yeah, she did. She's part
it was her birthday yesterday.
Oh, yes, it was her birthday. Shout out to Ava. She texted me and said, she reached out and said, "Vero, we're sending 200 garden beds tomorrow." And I said, "Tomorrow?" She's like, yeah, tomorrow. I was like, okay. So I gathered my team. I tell you Farmer Dave. I get with the green team. I said, "Listen, this is what we're getting." And so Farmer Dave's already freaking out because we didn't know what these garden beds look like. So when they got here, when the beds got here in Poncho and David went out there and saw those garden beds, I was like, "Vero, we can install this in 10 minutes. This is super easy." So we did. In 3 weeks, we installed over 200 garden beds throughout the city. It's been beautiful. We have 12 families, so we're following their journey. So we kind of understanding what's going on.
So is Juanito one of those?
Juanito is one of them.
Juanito's patient 0.
He was patient 0. He was our test, and we did put a garden bed in his property, and he loved it, and he's thriving right now.
Yeah, he's amazing. I had time to spend with him, and he's amazing. All of this too, so everybody can understand is. I went through these deliveries for a couple of days, and they're all over. So there's some in Southmost, there's some downtown, there's some in Rancho Viejo. Mm-hmm. They're all over town. So it's not just concentrated on one side of town or for certain people. I don't know how you guys selected the families, but it seems like they're everywhere.
Yeah, and so that was hard, and I'm glad you pointed that out because we're going to get a lot of questions, right? Like, why didn't I get one? Why didn't I get one?
That's what I wanted. Why didn't I get one? I'm just kidding.
First of all, there was only 200 garden beds. Actually, there was only 120 garden beds by the time we started. So what we wanted to do is provide families that were already kind of participating in the community gardens or were on the waiting list of the community gardens because they're mostly all sold out. So, and we wanted it to be close by to the community garden so that place can be served like as a hub.
Right.
Where you can come and ask questions or learn, or what is this chile supposed to look like, or what is the Swiss chard supposed to look like. So we wanted to do
Why does everything die? That would be my question. Why does everything die?
Yeah, why is everything dying? So that's another thing. So we wanted to kind of connect in that. And then I identified families that had family members living with them that wanted the health and wellness component that were going through depression that needed to get out, or elderly people that needed to get out. So that's why you had. So it was hard selecting. I wanted a garden bed. I didn't get a garden bed, but I want a garden bed.
Yeah.
But we're hoping that we're going to get more of these garden beds, and that's the next plan. So this project is called Project Grow, and we started here. Big Green's intention was to start it here in Brownsville to duplicate in other cities.
Right.
So how much time did it take? How long did it take Farmer Dave? How long is it going to take the staff, another organization to be able
How many people do you need to do the
people
logistics, to do everything?
Yeah. So it was essentially
The pilot
experiment kind of program. And let's see how we can duplicate in that other places. I'm hoping that we can get those garden beds fabricated in Texas, and then we have more access to them, right? To be able to, essentially, my dream come true is that everyone in Brownsville has one of these A beds and growing their own food, right? Wouldn't that be
And
cool?
we all have like something we tap into where we can all like share experiences or learn more about gardening.
And there is a Facebook page for all these families. It's a Facebook
like a group.
Yeah, it's a Facebook group that they're sharing their pictures and things like that. But that's the reason when people ask me, why didn't you post it on your Facebook? So that's the reason, because it could have gone crazy, because just what you said about COVID, during COVID times, we learned that people were engaged in gardening. Well, of course, you were outside.
You were at home. So
weather here
the only thing you could do is go outside of your house and garden. And really, they didn't want you to go to parks. They didn't want you to go anywhere.
And plants don't complain.
Exactly. They don't.
Don't complain and don't whine.
Mine do, because they turn all brown. I think they complain a lot.
Yeah.
But that's okay. So let's take it from there. Okay.
So then we did Project Grow.
Before I finish with Project Grow, then what's the difference between Project Grow and A Million Gardens?
A Million Gardens. So A Million Gardens is a program of Big Green. So Big Green is it's like a fundraising campaign. I can't tell you any more of it because I don't know very much about it, but
I just didn't know if it was tied to the plant beds. That's what I thought. Like there's a million of these going to go out.
I think it's part of the Million Gardens, being planted.
It's part of Project Grow somehow.
Project Grow is part of Million Gardens,
Got it.
Because if you want to count the million, so my 200 garden beds here, I'm sure is part of that million.
Yes, but they probably count the school ones as well and stuff like that. Got it. Okay. So then from there, something else happened, right? Like always.
Yeah.
So now what happens? I know, but
So the next part to this was weeks later after we started Project Grow. Again, my friend Diana Sagers calls and she says, "Hey Vero, guess what?" So I guess I want to rewind. So part of the so she says, we're starting this Big Green 𝙗𝙗𝙖𝙩. First of all, I didn't know what 𝙗𝙗 meant. And there's going to be a governance board. And so Kimball would like to know if you would accept an invitation to be part of that board. And I said, my response was, hell yes, right?
You didn't even know what you're talking about.
Whenever time they say that.
Yeah, but you don't even know.
I didn't even know at the time. But every time they say that, or if someone said hell yes, that was me.
Yeah.
Because I did say hell yes. Yeah. And I said hell yes, but I don't know what I'm doing. What am I doing? Because I'm sure I could figure it out. And then I said, and what is 𝙗𝙗? So it's a decentralized autonomous organization.
Yes.
So it is tied with Bitcoin.
Blockchain, not Bitcoin. Blockchain.
Blockchain and NFT world.
So let me help you.
Help me because I'm still learning that stuff.
So not that I know much, because this is what I did learn a lot, because I got to listen to a lot of this. And one is that even the experts don't know much yet. They're trying to put this together. So in my mind, a 𝙗𝙗 is what you said, right? Decentralized autonomous organization doesn't mean that you have to use this for nonprofits or that you have to use this in the way that Big Green is using it.
Right.
The way Big Green is using it is a new way of, let's call, a philanthropy system that could be democratized so that everybody can participate. Exactly. And from the little that I understand is that it would give equal vote to the recipient as well as the donor. So the donor, which usually is the rich, right, in any community, that maybe before Brownsville Wellness Coalition, you had people that, hey, I've got 20,000. I like Brownsville Wellness Coalition. But then I've got 20,000. I don't care about it. I want to give it to to 𝙁𝙁, or I want to give it to. So it just, you can give it to whoever you want,
Right.
but doesn't mean that that's where the need is.
Right. So it's a way of disrupting or changing the way philanthropy has been, the philanthropy work has been done through many years of centuries and centuries of filling out this application with 20 characters, 200 characters, a budget, a timeline, and
we heard nightmare stories. I'll tell you your story really quick.
Yeah.
Was it took you since 2008?
Yeah.
To get 20 grand? Was it 20? And you got it last year or when?
Yeah.
Last year.
This year.
This year.
This year, because I did talk about it.
Yeah.
Twitter Space.
Oh, okay.
But I think so. The story is that we had been applying every year.
It's a USDA grant or something like that, right?
Grant, right. Applying for this grant, right? And so then it would never happen. It would never happen.
The important thing for everybody to know is that was Vero's story, and then there was people from all over the country,
Mm-hmm.
and they all had the similar story, and a lot of them were about the USDA grant.
Yeah.
And it was like it's so impossible to go through all these hoops for $20,000.
Right.
Since 2008 till last year. Like, I don't even know why you kept going.
Well, every year I went to do it, right? And I was like, why am I doing this again? It was just like copy and paste.
Right.
Or I wouldn't even copy and paste. I would kind of change it up. And I was like,
maybe they like this.
Maybe they like this. I actually went to a conference one day and I said, hey, would you just tell me
what I need to do?
What language you guys want to read on these things? Because it was very different. But I think it was because they weren't identifying South Texas with South Texas. So everybody thought South Texas, we're funding. Yes, absolutely. We're funding South Texas. We're funding San Antonio. We're funding Austin. We're funding Houston. I'm like, that's not South Texas.
Right.
So that was my other bone to pick, right? I was like, you guys need a whole other part down here, right? But anyway, so there's a lot of stories about how philanthropy works.
Right.
And the struggles and the challenges that small nonprofits or even larger nonprofits have to go through. I call it the horse and puppy show, right?
Yes.
Because you kind of have to put the show on in order to get $5,000
yes.
or whatever.
RJ told me one thing once, and they have a foundation that is structured on investments, right? And he was the problem with nonprofits. And I remember this, he was like, the problem with nonprofits is you just have to go out and go get money.
Yeah.
You don't have time to do the nonprofit part that you're trying to do.
Right.
Because you're always trying to get more money.
Exactly.
Because that's the only way this works. And then you don't have time to do the thing that you said you wanted to do because that's all you spend all the time fundraising.
Or you get the funding and then the foundations want you to pay for, the tools that you're going to use, but they won't pay it for the people that are delivering the programs.
Right.
They're like, we're not going to invest money in people because we want this money
to go to
just restricted to paying for a certain item, right? Right. You can buy pens, you can buy paper, you can buy this, you can buy that, but we're not going to pay for you, Edgar, to use the paper, the pens, and whatever, right? So that's the kind of weird. So with the 𝙗, Kimball's way of thinking was like, okay, this has to change. We have to disrupt this somehow. Or fix it, right?
Yes.
So I think that disrupt sounds kind of throws people kind of off.
Disruption is very common in the tech world.
Right.
So it's a tech disruption, and it's a disruption into the way things are done.
So then this is where the 𝙗 was created.
Yes.
So Vero here is part of the governance board.
Yes.
That is disrupting this philanthropy work. Myself and 5 other colleagues from different parts of the country are creating this 𝙗 to be able to create communities.
So to clarify, Vero's on the board.
Yeah.
Of 6 people?
OG6.
6 people who actually started the governance of the 𝙗.
Correct.
Right? So the 𝙗 begins, if I understand this correctly, Big Green gives a certain allowance of funds so it will work.
Kimball donated the first $1 million into the treasury of that 𝙗 was donated by Kimball.
So the 𝙗 starts with $1 million.
With $1 million.
Got it.
12 days into Kimball donating his money, I'm going to say 12 days. I might be wrong on the number, but give or take, the treasury grew to $7 million.
Yeah, I heard that in the part of the interviews with him. It just grew automatically. The other thing was that important that I think Kimball said was that they explored all kinds of options.
Correct.
The DAO is the one they landed in, but
Correct.
they explored NFTs, they explored creating their own token, they explored all of these ways. So the DAO is like, at the end of it all, he was like, this is what I think would fit.
Exactly.
Right, for philanthropy or for...
And which is amazing because, like you said, it's donors making the decisions where the money is going to, right? And so it's given to this governance board. So then the 𝙤𝙤𝙤𝙤 created now a community. So we're in the governance board, and now we created a community. So our first task was the second quarter of the DAO was to give out, each of us received $50,000. And we had to recommend...
Each of the six got $50,000
Each of the six got $50,000
to give out.
To give out,
yes.
Right? So you could either pick one or two or three or however many organizations you wanted. For me, my goal was to give that money to organizations that needed that funding, not unrestricted funding, for food insecurity, right? Here close to in Brownsville.
Right.
There's people that gave all over the country. We're going to pick organizations from all over the country.
Yeah. One was from the Virgin Islands.
One from the Virgin Islands. Yeah. And so so people can pick from wherever they want. So the governance board can pick from wherever they want. So for me, I wanted to pick organizations that were going to continue servicing my community here in Brownsville. So I picked two organizations that can have that unrestricted funding so that they can move forward with the work that they're doing.
So that leads us to Big Heroes and 𝙒𝙗𝙤, which were the recipients.
Exactly.
Right? And so this is my perspective, or how it happened to me. So somehow Vero gets me into documenting. I have no idea what's going on as well, right? I have no idea same crap that you said. I have no idea who Big Green is. You're like, there's this group coming and they need documentation. And I'm like, okay, I mean, it's what I do. It's fine. Yeah, let's do documentation.
Plus you're Vero, and you're asking me to do something.
It's fine. And it's gardening. It should be interesting. That's not usually what I do. So I'm like, yeah, it's cool. And then I start getting wrapped into this, right? Into the whole plant bed. And I'm like looking at it. I'm like, this looks pretty cool. And then I start learning more about Big Green. I read a lot. So I started reading everything about Big Green. I started reading about the DAO. I started reading about everything. And then Saturday comes, it's farmer's market. And Diana, the one you're talking about, is like, hey, you want to go to Atlanta? Like, you need to go Monday. And so we all go to Atlanta, 𝙒𝙗𝙤, Big Heroes, and yourself, and us documenting, Renee and I. And this is the second quarter meeting, right? So you've decided, I'm going to distribute to these two organizations.
Right.
And they both get told, hey, you got to go to Atlanta. I guess some people didn't show up, right?
No,
because they had some Zoom people in.
Well, because not everybody. All of this moved really, really.
Yeah, fast. It was like really fast.
And I love you guys, and I love you guys because the minute I tell this story. And I called Martha and I called 𝙁𝙁. 𝙁𝙁 was out of town. And so we did everything over the phone, right?
Yeah.
I went and I sat with Martha, and Martha's like in tears, right? And I was like, this is what's happening. And then they're like probably talking to each other. It's like, what's going on? What is Vero wrapping us into, right? But for me.
That's what I was thinking too.
I'm sure that's what you were thinking. But for me, I was thinking, this is so passionate that we can empower people in my community.
Yeah.
Like for me, drop mic, this is what I'm doing, right? And then it just happened to be at the right time at the Cannery Public Market, groundbreaking.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a firm believer of stars aligning, and this was the stars aligning perfectly.
I wasn't going to go. I was feeling kind of sick, and I was like, it's a groundbreaking. I go to all these things all the time. Sometimes I document them, so I'm like, but I really am excited about the cannery. Actually, since we talked about it for a long time.
Yeah.
And I was really excited. I'm like, you know what? I should go. Just because I want to support. And sometimes people don't show up to these things. So I'm like, at least I'll be there if nobody shows up. And then that's when you told me, like, hey, you want to document this thing? And that's how it all just...
Well, and then at the groundbreaking, usually what happens at groundbreaking, people shovel dirt.
Right.
People shovel dirt from one side to the other, right? And I was like, no, we're not going to do that.
Yeah,
I'm going to change that around here a little bit. So I said, I talked to my team. I said, can we bring some of those garden beds, the big green garden beds? And I had the mayor, Trey Mendes, and Commissioner Gowan, and all the commissioners were there.
Yeah.
And so let's plant some transplants, right? In
Yeah.
these garden beds. And they're like, of course, Vero would make us
plant some stuff.
transplants, right? Yeah, at the groundbreaking instead of shoveling dirt from one side to the other. So those garden beds are going to be there. It was a great way to do it because we showcased the Big Green garden beds,
Right.
Project Grow.
It just ended up being like a synergetic event. And by the way, I said that some people don't show up. A lot of people showed up to this
A
thing.
lot of people showed up.
That was very surprising too.
I was surprised. My team, I was calling them to order more food, and they're like, "We're not going to listen to you better," because I was panicking. Right? I was like, "Oh my God, there's so many people coming." I was like, "I have nothing to see you guys. Nothing to show you guys. And this is if you only knew that the door behind us was falling yesterday." But the stars aligned. It was perfect.
Right.
We were able to showcase the work we've done as Brownsville Wellness Coalition, which is the food insecurity component, and that has been huge in Brownsville. And
I think it's super necessary, which is why people are supporting it, right? I think that the idea of the farmers market has been incredible, but we really at a time now where we need it all the time.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and thank God it's coming because I see that whole area now thriving. The whole place is really cool because everybody can go eat, buy stuff. It's a whole new way to activate that space, right?
Right, and it's in the corridor of the medical district, right? So it's a perfect place where, we're going downtown. You and I have been walking those streets and talking that area all of our life. It's a catty corner to the Gladys Porter Zoo, and it's in an area where there is no access to healthy food.
Right.
If you think about it, H-E-B closed in 2019.
Most any place in Brownsville is far away from healthy food.
It's called a food desert, right? Mostly everywhere. So we're trying to make sure that we can keep that place into a indoor-outdoor farmers market, but at the same time, and it's going to be a multi-purpose building that we can use. And this was all a vision of Ramiro Gonzalez and I when we drove up to the food bank one day and we talked about it. And it was, I said, I always say that building was like a boyfriend with good qualities, right? That you don't want to get rid of because he has good qualities.
Yeah,
I'm like, this building, Ramiro, this building has
he could be fixed up.
He could be fixed up, I swear. So sure enough, and here we are. And now, and we had gone to commission before, and they told us no. And then it changed, and then things changed, and then we figured out how to come up with funding. And so now we have all these big players participating in this cannery public market, and together with Big Green and the 𝙑𝙗, it's just mind-blowing. So my life has changed since November 21 to today.
And it's fast. So to come back to the 𝙑𝙗, so we go to Atlanta, right? I guess that's their introduction into the 𝙑𝙗.
Correct.
Right? So I don't think you guys had even met anybody from the 𝙑𝙗 or anything. You hadn't even met anybody from Green
No,
yet.
they didn't even know what 𝙑𝙗 meant.
Yes. So then we all go to Atlanta. They get introduced. So now how does that work? This is the part that I didn't completely understand. So are they now voters as well?
So that's what we're building on right now. So what we're doing is the first OG6 is now the new I guess funded organizations that all these OG6 brought on.
Right.
They're called the community.
Got it.
So the community is going to continue growing because now 𝙩𝙗 and Martha are going to help me identify other organizations so that we can fund as a collaborative effort, like a coalition. And they don't know this. That's why I'm looking that way. As a coalition, we're going to fund together for this next quarter. So now I have $120,000.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I know that every quarter it increases, right?
Yeah, because the treasury keeps on increasing. Right. So this quarter, we're going to have $120,000. And I want to do it with these great ladies to identify other organizations that need that help. Tackling food insecurity.
It also, I think, and I hope, it's going to create camaraderie between you guys.
Absolutely.
To like now in Brownsville, be empowered to like do what they're trying to do in big scale for the whole community. Exactly. Because, you guys bring so much to the table and different things to the table that can really like, I probably had the most conversations with 𝙩𝙗 about her organization, but it just seems like we could do so much more.
Exactly.
And this seems like, at least right now, a path to that.
Yeah, and this is going to be my personal mission for this is to tap into the organizations that are doing the grassroots work, right? Because the ones that are tackling the one. Because I know these ladies work very, very hard.
Yeah, I know that.
Their organizations. Yes. And every nonprofit that you talk to, you'll always have a fierce leader that works very, very hard. And so, and nonprofits have a hard job, right? Because we're trying to do good in the world, tackle some sort of need in the community with very little resources. And in the border towns, you kind of get used to that, right? Because you do with what you have, right? And so I think we need to change that. There's people that are really interested in providing resources to organizations like BWC and these other organizations.
That's one of the things that I've talked to Hilda about a long time, right? It was like, look, if people outside knew what you were doing, they'd probably want to help. Exactly. And but how do you get that message out? And how do you get, that's the hard part, right? And we've always talked about it. How do we get the message out for not just her and Big Heroes, everybody, right? Yeah. It's like, look, I said it several times to them. It's like, look, it seems like Brownsville's being discovered, right? But we're not discovered enough yet. Right. We're not. We're at the beginning of it. Exactly. And people should really know. And everyone that I talk to, I always give my elevator pitch, right? Right. Oh yeah, even people on the plane, and sometimes there's. Yeah. I met actually on my way to Atlanta, I met this lady that was a fellow of an organization that's a funding foundation. Right. So she's like, "Oh yeah, you should really tap into this." And Martha's looking at me like, "Pero you had just a whole conversation with this lady about your organization." And I was like, "Yeah." She even gave me a grant that I could apply for, right? Which is really, really nice, but. Because as a nonprofit, that's your defense mechanism. Right. And one of the things I want to point out is when I told Hilda and Martha about this money and this award, they're like, well, Vero, what are the deliverables? And what are the outcomes? And how much time am I going to invest? I said, nothing. And they're like, what do you mean? Yeah, well, and what do I have to spend it on? Or that's the defense mechanism. What report do I have to write? What report do I have to write? What big pile of papers do I have to give you? Exactly. Yeah.
And nonprofits run through that every single day.
Right.
All that is your work every single day. So with this DAO, we're trying to disrupt that and change it so that it can be. So that Hilda can spend time playing her guitar and teaching kids how to play guitar, or running her Sunday cafe and feeding families while their child is getting
focus on the work that's important.
Yeah, it's really important.
Dealing with donors is not as important as dealing with the kids.
Exactly.
And I mean, I think we need to be grateful. We need to be gracious for every donor, but the donors are as well giving you the money because they want the work on the ground.
Well, the other thing that I've also learned with the DAO is that donors need education because they're just writing the check. Right. But they have an interest in wanting to know the challenges and the risks that organizations are facing every day, because they do want to learn how a nonprofit is run. The people.
Right. The people.
I spent a lot of the time. We had to write a proposal, I think, in 8 minutes. I think they timed us. It was 8 minutes that we had to write a proposal. I spent 4 minutes or longer explaining how a nonprofit works to them because they
don't know.
They didn't know. And they wanted to genuinely know how a nonprofit is.
Right.
So it's very interesting, this whole new life of DAO. It's, I'm learning a lot.
I think that, it's massive to talk about, like everything we saw, everything. It was very inspirational. The other thing that I think is worth mentioning is the diversity in the room was incredible, right? You just talked about people for whom the people who don't know is the guy who sold the most expensive NFT to date. It was somewhere near the $70 million mark for his NFT. And he's Canadian. Right?
No, he's from Wisconsin.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Close enough. But completely different from Hilda and from Brownsville, from all of us.
From me.
I was
sitting there and you're like, Vero, do you know who that is?
Yeah.
I'm like, no. Vero, you really don't know who that is? I'm like, no.
Yeah. I'm an artist nerd, so that's kind of I knew he was, and I've heard him talk before. But like him, the alchemist, to me, was like such a cool guy. got a lot of chance to, and these are the makers of the tech, or the guys coming up with the tech that you guys, I guess, oversee. So it's just an incredible collaborative effort, and I'm amazed. I'm still trying to process a lot of it and understand more of it. Yeah, of course, of course. I'm in touch with a lot of alchemists, and I are texting back and forth all the time now, and it's just amazing. I want to thank you personally because I do a lot of this stuff, right? And I go to great places. Like, my life is good that way because the camera gets you into a lot of places. But this is amazing to me.
Yeah.
I'm very inspired, and I want to be better, and hopefully I can be. And at least I'll be a better gardener.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, at least you can be a better gardener. But yes, no, thank you. This has been great. And this is just the beginning. Again, we're planting a seed, a new project. And I'm very hopeful that things are going to be great for all of us. And as much time as I can spend talking to people about the great work and the asset that Brownsville has is their people, right? We have people that are amazing, such as Martha from Big Heroes and Hilda from Roca, and everyone, all the nonprofit world, which for me, I didn't know nonprofit until I came into the nonprofit, right? And it's important to identify all that work that is being done.
Yeah, I got to see a lot of what you do, and I didn't know any of that. Yeah.
Well, you've known each other for a long time.
I know. It was amazing.
Well, I will remember someone, I guess, introduced me as the executive director of Brownsville Wellness, and you're like, you're the executive director.
Yeah.
I was like, yes, dude.
It's like, what are they doing? No. We know each other since we were kids. So I was like, but I knew you had a farmer's market.
Yeah.
Right? That's kind of how I she likes farmer's markets.
Yeah.
So that was cool. And then you told me about the cannery. So I was like, that's a really cool project. But now when you get in depth, you're like, that's really, really thoughtful. It's a really thoughtful project. And now with Big Green and what they're bringing to the table, it's not just thoughtful. It could be life-changing for a lot of people in our community.
Absolutely. I agree.
So, Vero, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to talk to your other two colleagues that are now part of the community.
Yeah.
But where can they find out about you? Do you have a website?
So we have BrownsvilleWellnessCoalition.com, and then you can follow us on Facebook and Brownsville Wellness Coalition, and Instagram, and Discord, and Twitter, and BWC Wellness on Twitter. So yeah, we do a lot of that stuff. So yeah. Oh,
and last plug, you're having an event coming up, right?
Which one? Yes, we have
something several. At the park, right?
Yes, well, we are gonna start some momentum for Symphony in the Park. Brownsville Wellness Coalition is going to adopt Symphony in the Park for next year. We'll have a big concert next year, but we're going to start with small concerts at the park, at Linear Park, where we usually have the farmers market. It's April 29th at 6 p.m.
Yes, perfect. So head on out there, enjoy, help Brownsville Wellness Coalition as much as you can, and get involved. Find out. She doesn't have more plant beds, but find out, because she'll eventually have them, and you're going to want them.
Yeah,
once you see them, you're going to want them.
Yeah, we'll get in somebody's face.
Thank you, Vero. Thank you so much.